you very much.
Thank you.
And good afternoon. I'm actually going to take you through the rather modest title there of the fastest, most connected island in the world. So I'm going to take you through a bit of a journey about this program, why it happened, how it's funded, and why and what experiences we've had so far. I just want to do a quick survey, though, because over the last couple of days, I've listened to a number of different presentations and seen a number of different vendors talking about how they can stretch copper. And that people and customers, businesses, more consumers, don't need more than 30 megabits. Can everybody that's got 1 gigabit service to their home put their hand up? One person. Can you put your hand up if you've got 1 gigabit symmetric service to your home? 2 of us. Excellent. So we have lots of people telling us that you don't need more than 30 megabits, which is clearly garbage. So unless you've experienced what it's like to have a gigabit symmetric service to your home, running the 55 odd devices you've got running in your home, you can't really say there's no demand for it. As soon as we put it there, the demand will be taken. So it will be taken, and that's the experience we're seeing with the rollout of gigabit on the island of Jersey. So just to help you understand a bit about where is Jersey, because it's not in North America. If you look at the map up there, you'll see a little red dot, which is a 9x5 island, the bailiwick of Jersey. It is not a part of Europe, and it's not a part of the UK. It is about 12 miles off the coast of France, and is a crown dependency to the Queen. We've been around a long time. We are the incumbent operator in Jersey. We have a fixed NGN, so we offer fixed services. We have a mobile NGN. We offer mobile services. We offer business services and data services. But we're a very small business. On the island, there's about 100,000 people. So we have real challenges of economy of scale. Just a little bit about the island. 18 of the world's top 20 banks operate from Jersey. And roughly, and I can't guarantee the number, but roughly 2% of the world's worth finds its way through Jersey in one way or another. So generally, people visit Jersey just to go and see their money. It's about, GDP is about 6th in the world. So a lot of high net worth on the island and a lot of high-end business, especially around financial services. So our ambition when we first talked about Gigabit Jersey was to provide a fully ubiquitous network, full removal of all copper, future-proof that network. So effectively, we put fiber in the ground and we never touch it again, because the most expensive thing about laying fiber and touching it again is people cost, and people cost is not going down. It's only going one way. Equipment cost, and I'm sure there's many vendors in the room, it is definitely going down. We wanted to do something revolutionary for the island because there has been 1 or 2 little hiccups in financial services over recent years. Jersey is quite dependent on the financial services industry, so some form of diversification. So we really wanted to try and create some sort of platform in Jersey that will enable the change to occur. And we investigated most technologies, from purely going after a sort of 4G approach, a WiMAX approach, VDSL, fiber to the mode, cabinet, and every other option on the available, and GPON, etc. So many different PON options. And what we concluded was, given that this was for a long-term investment, it was to be a revolutionary change to the island, none of those delivered what we really needed to deliver to the market. And it's not as though we have that finite amount of demand now, but we know in the term of putting that fiber in the ground that we are going to see how we can change the economy on Jersey. And that is exactly what it's all about. So, being very modest about it, the fastest, most connected island in the world. So every broadband line by the end of 2016 and earlier, if I can do it faster, will have the capability for 1 gigabit. I've listed a number of things there which we've all heard about over the last few days about why we might need that. But fundamentally, it is the digital platform for Jersey. It is the thing, like Holland had their sort of trading platform. Jersey, very much being a small island, has built from a platform orientation, be it from shipping or trading between mainland Europe and the UK. It also has a very nice tax arrangement, of course, if you're interested. So it is about creating the digital platform. The toughest thing, of course, is this has got to make some money within a reasonable period of time. And I think that the sort of numbers that have been bandied around, or years that have been mentioned in this room over the last few days, have been about 12 years. And that is about right. I think payback on pure double play is going to be about 12 years. But we're putting the fiber in the ground not for 12 years. We're putting fiber in the ground for 30 years or 40 years. That's what fiber means, and that is why it's so important. This is a critical national infrastructure play. So our core principles of our business case was very much around no divide. This was for everyone. To use the fiber service or to move from copper to fiber was no cost to the end consumer. So if they had a 8 megabit service today that they were paying 25 euros for, when it converted to fiber, it'll be an 8 megabit service, although what you see is what you get on fiber versus the copper version, at the same price. Plus, we would give you a free router. So actually, you're not seeing a major change, and that's because we're running a forced migration process. So it's not a demand-driven process. We are removing the copper broadband network. So every customer has to move across, both retail customers and those served through our wholesale customers. We wanted every installation to have 1 gigabit. So all the technology that we deploy must be software configurable to give 1 gigabit to every one of those endpoints. We had to give equivalence to all providers, because even though the island is only 9 by 5 with 100,000 people, we have 2 other operators that offer broadband services based on our core network. And the final principle was we wanted to flood fiber the island, so that once we lay this fiber, within 100, on average, meters of every property on the island, we close the covers to the boxes, we walk away, and we never go back. That's the core principles. And we're quite lucky in Jersey that we had ducting into every premise. So it reduces the amount of civil works. Experience has shown, though, that it's not quite as easy as that, because over years ducting does get blocked, it does get damaged. Tree roots have a great way of finding a little bit of water inside the duct and filling the duct with roots. But that should or has reduced our civils costs massively. Probably versus where you have to dig, maybe up to 200% less. We will achieve operational cost reductions, of course. Once we put the fiber in, it's not as susceptible as copper. It doesn't. We get a lot of lightning on the island because it's basically a granite rock, which causes many service outages. We won't suffer from that. So we've got a way of reducing our operating costs Also, the technology we're deploying is the same technologies we're deploying to our enterprise customers, which we have to serve at the higher speeds anyway. And as I said earlier, our justification was purely on double play, so nothing more, no value-added services above it. So it was based on voice and broadband services. So the voice, of course, like for all of us on fixed, is declining at a rapid rate and doesn't seem to be stopping. Anywhere from sort of 5% to 15% per annum of decline on voice. So we needed to counter that decline, and the way to counter that decline is bring it in with broadband and then upsell on the broadband. And the final point is very much about the sort of governmental support. The government of Jersey, which is separate from the UK, of course, government, the government of Jersey recognised the diversification need. They recognised that it needed to be low footprint because Jersey isn't getting bigger, unless the tide goes out, of course, and it gets massively bigger. But it's not getting bigger, so it had to be very low footprint. So really wanted to go after a digital economy, needed a platform to enable that to happen. And then regulatory, I think we have a manageable regulatory environment. So the program itself started in late 2011. We approached it in 3 phases. The first phase, which was the core build, and it was interesting to hear from another speaker about their experience when they moved from ADSL 2+ to fibre when the service was worse on a Sunday evening. That sounds like it was over-contended, and they didn't put sufficient capacity into the core. So our core build was very much about putting in effectively a new internet for the island and upgrading all the internet connectivity in the houses. So that was the first thing we did. Then, of course, it's just running the main core network cabling. We started that in late 2011, and will be completed sometime towards the end of next year. So we run the premises passed, so passing every premise within about 100 meters on average of that premise. And we over-provision. So we've well over-provisioned on the fibre, both from the core end through to the distribution end. So we've allowed growth for the next sort of 12, 15 years of fibre. Because again, we want to put the covers down on those holes, on those manholes, and walk away and never touch it again. Then it's premises connected, which to be frank, is a total pain in trying to get fibre connected into the home. Because one of the other core principles was we didn't want to use any of the existing copper home wiring. You can't guarantee a service if you're using a number of variable elements. And home wiring generally is not very good. All sorts of things on voice problems to broadband problems that we've encountered. So we wanted to guarantee a 1 gigabit service up to the endpoint, the Ethernet port at the back of the router. Excuse me. So we really had to put in a complete solution. That we will finish by the end of 2016. A little map of Jersey. This is our map of premises passed. In the green, you can see where we finished. The orange bits are where we're in build, mostly about to finish. And the red bits is basically the town on the island, St. Helier, that we chose to do last. And we chose to do last mainly because we wanted to learn and perfect our processes for laying the fibre prior to going into the town and causing chaos. It's a very small place with very tight roads and lots of traffic. So you need to be quite dexterous in the way that you deliver it. This map just gives you a feel for where the customers are. So this is every broadband line on the island. You can see that high density point around town, the very red bit. The green dots are where we've got live fiber service. So there's currently about 5.3 thousand lines that are now live on fiber. And the other dots are where we either haven't started or another licensed operator has yet to put the customers onto broadband. So what you can see there is a fair distribution around the island. It's quite densely populated. So there's not really a rural environment. It's very much like a large town. A bit about lessons. With 20% of our base has already been switched over to fiber. These are the key things that I learnt and the team learnt during that process. And I won't read them all, but the thing for me is actually once you're in the home. So as a broadband or a DSL type operator, you had very little to do with what actually happened inside the premise. Because all you did was deliver either a wires only or a router that the customer put wherever they want. They had internal wiring. They just put a filter on in any one of the plugs in any one of the rooms. With fiber, that all changes. Because actually the router, because we want to assure service, we've got to own the connection between the network termination, and the router itself. So we have to determine where to put that capability or that box. Once you get into the home, it all becomes about that Wi-Fi experience. And because many of the houses, it's pretty similar around the world, I guess, the penetration of Wi-Fi through different materials can be particularly awkward. Many of the houses on Jersey are built of granite, both externally and internally. Granite is a fairly dense material, so Wi-Fi doesn't penetrate particularly well. So actually getting the fiber into the premise through the riser, because over time people build around risers. Those risers get damaged, the risers get lost. So the wiring in the premise and Wi-Fi performance in the premise is absolutely critical. And it's something that particularly JT and many others, I guess, never really participated in previously. And if we want to move into home networking, then we've really got to understand the implications of that. And I think the other key thing is really about the need to be adaptive and how you're going to switch over. Because we're running a forced migration process. If customers are not asking for this, we're forcing them to migrate from copper to fiber. We're not charging them more or anything like that, but they are being forced, and it is disruptive. So getting our switchover process, how we switch them over, and that the engagement with those customers is critical, but also clustering the group of customers. So getting that project efficiency out of it. And of course, people tend to talk to their neighbors. So if we do one house and not that house wants to know why they haven't done theirs, or even round the other way, why have you done mine when I didn't want it the same as next door? So quite critical. The top 5 program don'ts, if you're considering this, the big one for me is always about getting predictability on cost in any sort of rollout. Getting anywhere near time and materials on such a program, is quite critical. So I would never do a time and materials contract, especially with the field engineering. And the other thing is around the data. And I think someone earlier today talked around just your information about what you've got, where it is, just your pure assets, but actually about the services that run on top of those assets. I don't know about you guys, but frankly, our data management and our inventory management of our assets in the ground, the ducting, the spatial view, the logical view, and then services on top of it was absolutely awful. And I guess that's a pretty common problem. There was some discussion about how can we monetize the data traffic from customers and the customer behavior. I think personally we're a long way from that because our data management generally is not very good. And the learning for me was you have to sort of clean as you go, because we had a program of trying to fix it before we actually physically went to sites, and you just can't do it. You might get a few percentage points improvement, maybe 10, 15% improvement, but actually to really improve our data, because we are visiting every site, that is the time to do it. So a key learning for me. Where are we going with this? And everybody's, lots of discussion all this week about the amount of data and capacity that's going to be needed, and of course the implications of 4G and mobile. The way I'm looking at this is I'm going to have 42,000 endpoints, SIP endpoints. Now that's 42,000 small cells I've got. That's the way I'm looking at this. So fiber isn't just about broadband to homes. It's about how we get connectivity to very small areas at a cost-effective approach. And the transition from switchover to gigabit products. So we're taking a base that's used to getting this and taking them over to something where they can get so much more. The first stage, of course, is switching over. The next stage is where do we go from there? And I think there's many, many options of how we can engage our customers in the future products. I'm a great believer in you don't get rich by giving things away. Sounds daft, but I think as an industry, we've fought over broadband and totally devalued it. And I think we need to convert that. And I think the guy from Google also was saying, not that I agree with Google all the time, but I do believe what he was saying, that the fact is we need to move away from a eat all you can type model on a pipe and actually value the capacity of that pipe. So I can see that we will give 1 gigabit to every connected point on the network. And then the payment would be for what you're using, how much capacity you're using, and the type of capacity that you're using. And there's two other things very quickly. Because it's a digital platform, it supports the government's initiatives through Digital Jersey, which is funded by the government, to accelerate Jersey as a global choice for digital business, and also for JT, the company I work for, to achieve what's called JT Lab. So we're small, we're open. So our principle is that we want to attract people to test things on Jersey. So we have a very well-connected base that's got a lot of capacity. We have data centers. We have an open mobile network where we will allow potentially startup companies to connect into that network, to see data, to interface with our fixed and our mobile networks at a control level, to test products. So not just technically, but test market those products with a very confined and controlled base on Jersey. Jersey has been used for many years as a test for the FMCG markets. For instance, many of the chocolate bars that find their way into the UK get first test marketed on Jersey. And we're linked into the Telecom Council of Silicon Valley and the UK-Israeli business to try and promote the use of Jersey as this testbed. And here's a few names of clients that are now using Jersey to test products and services that has been really driven by the fact that we're investing in fiber, but also opening our network to enable them to be successful.